Well, thank you very much. Good morning. Very happy to be here and congratulate Thierry again for this very interesting organization. Very happy to be here with Norbert again. We meet very often, as you know, and we even have some Weimar trips. And we were in Kiev together and in Berlin not long ago, and I will go back to Berlin next week. So I hope we'll have some controversy anyway.
Well, you always have Kiev.
Europe, what's next? I think the main challenge has been for many years now to rebuild the link between the European Union and the European people. And this is all the more important now after the Brexit and after the election of Donald Trump. But my opinion is that those two recent events, although they were a shock, maybe also an earthquake, might very well be an opportunity to strengthen Europe, provided European leaders have the courage and sufficient political will. As far as Brexit is concerned, well, first we have to respect the vote, of course. It's for the British people to decide, although we deplore it and regret it profoundly. But what I think is that despite the enormous lies of Brexiters and the fact that they did not assume the responsibilities, I think the only thing we have to do now is to have, as quickly as possible, the exit negotiations started, certainly not later than by the end of March next year. Why? Because it has to be, those negotiations will have to be completed before the European elections in June 2019. Secondly, I think that I hope that these discussions and negotiations will reach the best cooperation possible, provided we don't, we stick to the principles of the Union, which are of course the single market, the four freedoms, including freedom of movement, and that we do not cave any of the fundamentals of the Union. And having said that, we can very well imagine a specific status for the UK, since the UK government said that they didn't fit with either the Norwegian model or the Swiss model. But of course, with the idea, not at the expense of the Union. And up to now, the 27 have kept together on such a line. And of course, it is very important to say that among those principles, the financial passport goes along with the single market. I was in London, last Sunday and Monday, and we had thorough discussions on that. It's obvious that it will be a very difficult discussion, but you know, it's for the British to decide. If they want to have some access to the single market, then it is for them, like the Swiss and the Norwegian, to accept some of the rules. And finally, on the Brexit, I would say that France will be very keen in enhancing its bilateral cooperation, certainly on defense, on migration, and of course, on the status of the British citizens in France and the French citizens in the UK. As far as the US elections are concerned, of course, the US is a major partner of France and of Europe, and we have to work with Mr. Trump. Whatever the uncertainties, we have to work together because we have links on economy, on security, on the Middle East, in Africa, on the fight against terrorism, and of course, last but not least, on the climate issue. But on all of these issues, we're expecting to know what Mr. Trump is effectively going to do. And of course, we have some worries, especially on the climate change. I was in Marrakesh last, when was that? Tuesday. And I could see, even in hearing John Kerry, how concerned and worried he was. So we'll have to discuss with Mr. Trump what nuclear deal with Iran, what future for transatlantic negotiation, and what will be the US policy towards Russia and towards China. Well, there are lots of threats, you know, especially in the China Sea, and some of the words during the campaign were not reassuring on that. So I think on those two events compel the Europeans really to do what they should have done for many years, which is to strengthen their policies, not on all subjects, of course. Europe has not to deal with everything, but on subjects where transnational challenges are there, we need to have a stronger Europe. And I hope that the time has come, especially for Europe to have an external policy, because one of the main flaws, we have strengthened our internal policies. I think the Economic and Monetary Union is well on a good path in strengthening itself. We have common policies which, you know, are okay, but we have never had a common external policy, and we need that. Not only on foreign affairs policy, not only to fight terrorism, but for migration and for the development of our neighbors, either in the east or in the south. So I think we have no other choice than to unite ourselves, and I hope it will be possible.
Let me ask you one question here. I mean, Brexit was kind of a shock, and it seems to have led to lots of other shocks. And these things have a momentum. But do you think for the European Union, this is a prise de conscience, a sort of wake-up call? Do you think it will sober people about the future of the European Union and bind it more? Or will it begin to spin it apart, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I hope it will be, as Thierry said, a wake-up call, of course. I'm not sure. It depends on the common will of the leaders, which is rather weak and has weakened. It depends on their ability to explain to the European people that going inward, building walls is not a solution, that since when we have transnational challenges, we are bound to cooperate together and to deal in a transnational way, and to explain that in a global world, which is a more and more uncertain world and more unstable, the only solutions are in cooperation between the Europeans, and to explain maybe that to give answers to the fears of the Europeans. If you think, what are those fears today? They express fears from the outside. And therefore, we've got to explain and to make understand that the only answer is to cooperate, to give a positive response to that. So I hope, but I'm not sure, of course.
No, that's right. It just seems to me it's really where you started, which is the reconnection of the European Union to Europeans themselves. And part of it's about listening. And bureaucrats aren't always very good at listening. They're quite good at telling.